In an effort to bring zero cost to consumer information to the general public, in that spirit, I would like to thank our sponsors for today. Our first sponsor for today is EvoScent. EvoScent is the signature luxury line of fragrances created by award-winning master and veteran perfumer Ramon Bejar in collaboration with EvoRich Group of companies. The EvoScent collection of 8 bespoke, crafted and unisex fragrances, called the Highest, is now available on the EvoScent website for purchase at a price of $150. However, there's a limited time promotion going on, so use the code HEGYREX4 during checkout, and you only have to pay a flat worldwide shipping fee of $25 instead of $150. Buy now using the link in the description below. And now, back to the show. Thank you so much for making time and being here today with us, Aanchal Sapra.
Thank you for having me, Asa.
Okay, so I don't think we've known each other for a very long time, right? It's only been
A couple of years.
a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think this is the, maybe not the first time, or maybe one of the few times that we've actually got the time to sit down, relax, and have a proper long conversation with no other agenda, no interruptions, right?
That's very true, because usually when we sit, we'll have 1,000 topics to talk about and just digress into everything.
Yes, and today we're going to do exactly that. So, for those of you who don't know, Aanchal is a very inspiring individual. Not because of what she's done, but because of what she's done in spite of all that she has. So, usually people want to make something out of their lives out of necessity, but Aanchal was born with a silver or golden spoon, whatever you would like to call it, and she is still one of the most passionate, hardworking and enterprising individuals out there. So Aanchal, what I would like to ask you and begin with is, when did you know or decide exactly that what is it that you want to do with your life?
It was a confusing journey, but I knew I wanted to do something in the baking field when I was in the 7th grade. That's when I actually got into baking. And then closer to my undergraduate, I actually said, okay, no, this is something that I clearly want to do, because I started a business out of it. So in the 7th grade, someone gifted me a slab of cooking chocolate for my birthday. And at first I thought it was really weird, because why is someone gifting me chocolate? And I'm not used to seeing my mom cooking or baking, so it never came from there. But I was like, let's see what we can do with this. What's this actually used for? So that's when I got into learning how to make chocolate. That it was a very preliminary stage, of course, and that's when I got into baking. So that's when my love for baking started and the kitchen started. But making a career out of it was surely much later, when I was in my 2nd, 3rd year of college.
So 7th grade.
Yes.
So you had nobody else in the family who had a background, or nobody that pushed you into
one.
going into this
No
field?
one, absolutely no one. In fact, when I decided to get into the baking industry, my dad, before I decided to get into that, my dad often said, why don't you get into architecture or interior design? Because he's from the construction field. So he said, align that, your creative energy is there. But it just wasn't my calling. And I just wanted to use simple ingredients to make delicious food. So that's where my love for baking started.
Why baking, but why not any other type of cooking? Why specifically only baking?
Because I have a huge sweet tooth. It started from there, making first things that I love, that I was extremely fond of. So I started with cupcakes, and I've never really been fond of the culinary side. In fact, even when I was in school, I would tell my friends that, okay, you all cook, I'll do the dishes and everything, but I'm not cooking. So cooking was never on the cards for me. It was always baking, because of the major sweet tooth I have. And that's why I wanted to know how you can take simple ingredients like sugar and flour and butter and turn it into something as delicious as a cupcake.
So you pursued your undergraduate studies in Pune itself?
In Pune. So I went to Symbiosis for my BBA.
Okay.
And while I was studying, I actually had a business side by side. So I started with an endeavor called Bake My Day. And I was making cupcakes, because my first order actually came about during that time period from a family friend. He was working for a company at the point that where they were doing a fair, and he wanted to get something to sell at that fair. So he had tasted my cupcakes and he said, why don't you make this for me, and I'll purchase it from you. So I said, okay, why not? Let's take on the challenge. And little did I know that he's going to give me an order for 500 cupcakes. And all I had was this tiny oven that could bake 9 cupcakes at a time. So I said, you know what, let's do this. If nothing, at least I'll learn if I'm meant for this or not. So I started and I woke up at 3 a.m. and I baked all of these 500 cupcakes in one day. And that's when I realized that I am in love with this and I really want to start something of my own from this. So I started and then I started taking orders. I named my little endeavor Bake My Day, and I would take orders from college. So it started out with friends and family and getting orders from my colleagues. And it slowly word spread, Pune being a small city. And this one cafe in Viman Nagar heard about me. So they called me in for a meeting. They did a trial of my cupcakes and I started supplying to this cafe. So in my second year, and this was all through first year, second year, entering third year, my parents were like, okay, now you really need to decide if you want to go down the marketing field and finance, or do you want to do baking? Because all through my college, I excelled at marketing and finance as well. And if it wasn't baking, I'd have probably got into the marketing industry. But I knew that I just wanted to bake all day and I wanted to create all these sweet delicacies because it gave me a lot of joy when I heard people, like unknown people especially, call me back and say, hey, we tried something that you made and it was absolutely nice. So that would always bring a smile to my face. So that's when I decided, entering third year of my undergrad, that I wanted to do a specialization in baking and pastry.
So you mentioned that if you wouldn't have got into baking, you would have probably been in the marketing and finance side.
Yes.
I think it's great that you're good at it because it's complementary and it's really helping you grow your business right now as well, right? And it's needed. Marketing and finance are so crucial no matter what business you're in, right?
Absolutely.
So was it difficult choosing between the two? Because like you mentioned, you really like the aspect of making things by yourself and, hearing from people how good your products are. But wouldn't it be the same, especially if you get into marketing, where you can create a campaign and see it flower or blossom?
It was actually very, very difficult. So I went through this entire phase of 6-8 months in my life where my parents were constantly like, okay, what do you want to do? Because you're kind of in the middle of two things. And it was very stressful because I didn't know what exactly it is that I wanted to do. But in college, I was excelling at marketing in terms of all our extracurriculars with our clubs and our college fests, and I was enjoying that as well. But it never gave me as much happiness as it would when I was in the kitchen making something, no matter how tired I am, because it is a physically challenging industry as well, because you're standing all day. But it just gave me more happiness, even though everyone said that you're not going to have much of a life if you're in this industry. You're working all holidays. If you're working for someone, the pay is obviously not going to be as much, especially when you're starting out. But it was just, for me, it was what gave me happiness. Can I go to bed happy at night? And that came when I was baking. So that's how I decided to go down that field.
Okay, so basically during your undergraduate years, you decided that baking is what you want to do. And then you went to the Culinary Institute of America. Am I right?
Yes, that is correct.
So could you recount that a little bit regarding that journey? How did you find out about this? Because, sorry to interrupt, but so for those watching and for personally even me, I didn't know that CIA was such a big deal, right? It is like the Stanford or Harvard of baking and culinary arts, right? So could you,
So the CIA came very unexpectedly. So I started doing my research on what colleges I wanted to go to. And of course, my mom, being my mom, she also was head on this, finding out about things. And the most popular college that came up was Le Cordon Bleu, which was all over London, France, everywhere. And coincidentally, I had a trip planned to London and Paris at that point. So I said, why not go to the university and see the options I have? My mind was pretty much set on LCB, and there was another college in France as well, that Ferrandi, that we had found out about. So I said, let's find out and get to go visit these colleges and see what it is. And if you say pastry, everyone knows France is the place to go. So I went to these colleges, and a little before I left, I spoke to a couple of chefs from the industry who, and one of them had actually studied at the CIA. And so he said that if you are spending that kind of money, you should definitely consider the Culinary Institute of America, because it's the best college out there. So I said, okay, I'm not sure if I can go to America all the way or pursue this or not. But one of the things that he said struck a chord with me, which was it's a 2 year degree program, which includes an internship. So it gives you a hands on experience in between the 2 years, which I found was very good because you will only learn through study. You obviously learn in class where it's a hands on degree, but you only learn through experience. And that internship aspect really excited me. So, although I went and visited the schools in London and Paris, I preferred the CIA because of it being a longer program, because of it going not only to the practical aspect of the kitchen but also the theoretical aspect. So in your first year you do things like culinary math, where you learn how to change and how to convert recipes from cups and spoons to grams, and not only grams but also ounces, because they work in ounces and pounds. So you learn all of these things where it's a mix of theory and practical, and it goes just beyond the baking arts. So we had an entire wines course for 3 weeks in our school, and it taught us more than just if you wanted to be a chef. I went in saying I want to be a chef, but when I came out, I said, "Oh, wines is interesting. Maybe I do something in that as well, and maybe I try and study that more." It opened my eyes to a lot more fields than just culinary arts.
So you were glad that you made the decision not to go to like Cordon Bleu and to go to CIA.
Yes, I was
Which
very, very
city
happy.
is?
It's in Hyde Park, New York. So it's about 2 hours from New York City. It's in a little town called a little ahead of Poughkeepsie. So it's a very remote, small town area. Not much to do around, but beautiful hikes and trails, and the campus itself is gorgeous.
So what would you say is is or are some of the most important things you learned from CI, apart from some of the things that you mentioned right now? Or what I'm trying to ask you is there's a lot of competition in the industry right now, not only in India or in the world, especially even in Pune.
Correct.
Like a lot of home bakers, a lot of
Yes.
people who have gone to Le Cordon Bleu. But I think you're one of the few people who has gone to CI, right?
Yes.
So what would you say are the main differences between these two institutes, and what are some of the things that you learned that are different from what is being done here?
I think one is the knowledge of ingredients, that is very, very important. And CIA focuses a lot on that because that is your core. That is where your products actually come out from. So we did an entire 6 week class on only learning and understanding different kinds of ingredients in terms of even in fruits, if you use fresh fruit versus purees versus canned food. So the ingredients is a huge aspect, which I would say is one of them. The second aspect is you actually get to work while you're on campus at a bakery or a cafe. So it's a 3 week compulsory course that you take. So it's nothing teaches you better than on the job. So you're going to actually make food that is served to customers and not only just eaten by you and your friends, which adds on a certain element of pressure because you know you have to deliver. And there are deadlines that need to be met because the cafes need to open at a certain point. So that is extremely important. And then, of course, the third aspect of opening your mind up to more than just baking, because we had a compulsory 3 weeks culinary class. So we did a little bit of culinary as well. And the culinary kids had a 3 weeks of baking class. So there is a little bit of crossover that you learn about. And also, of course, the aspect of introducing other subjects. Like we had a 3 weeks wines class where we learned all about wines. And I have friends today who are studying to be sommeliers, which is something they did not think coming in that they would want to do. So it's a lot of broadening your mind and opening up the aspects in terms of that.
Okay, so for our viewers out there, CIA is not only one of the best and the most prestigious, but also very expensive, along with living in New York. So do you think what you learned out there and the experience of living alone and working in such a hands-on environment, is it worth that investment?
It's definitely worth the investment if you're very, very sure that you want to continue in this industry, because a lot of people start out in a baking or culinary field and then they realize that this is not for them. So one of the major things I would say is if you're considering this industry and you're considering CIA, go and work for 4 months, for 6 months at a restaurant, at a cafe, doing whatever it is they let you do. Even if you're sitting and peeling carrots all day, go and work so that you actually know that this is something you really, really want to do. Secondly, train your body, because physical injury is something that you can definitely encounter, because of which you might have to change your career path. So once you are clear of these two things and you still want to go ahead and be in this industry, definitely consider going to the CIA, because you will get an invaluable education.
Now, for those who know you well enough, they know that you're a very by the book person.
Yes.
So, do you think that if you were someone who is not so by the book, would you be would you advise to the people that want to get into the baking or the culinary line that maybe it's okay to just, because there's so much knowledge available on the internet and even YouTube, and if you are willing to put in the hours and, like you mentioned, go and work and even peel carrots if you have to somewhere, or do you think that that experience that you got from CIA is just invaluable?
No, there's definitely the other aspect of things where your work experience is also something that is very, very, very important. So if you are someone who has the opportunity to work at different restaurants or cafes and actually go ahead that way and be self-taught, definitely I think that is also a great opportunity, because nothing teaches you better than hands-on experience. So some of the best chefs in the world are actually self-taught, because they have worked under people all their life, and that's how they've grown up the chain. So it's definitely a little bit more difficult, because you might have to start from absolutely nothing. But if that is something that you have the opportunity to do, it's always great.
So you're an only child, right?
Yes.
So do you think that helped, or it put pressure on you to decide a career path, or your parents are very different from other parents, so they didn't mind whether you took the time or whether it's that you wanted to pursue the baking line or the culinary line? Like, how is it being an only child, and when it comes to making decisions regarding your career?
So no one in my family, let alone my parents, but in all of my family is actually in the culinary industry. We all have different businesses, and mostly all of them are they work for themselves rather than for someone else. It's just how the family has been in whatever field. And my dad just had one thing. He said, whatever you want to do, it should be something professional. Whether take on a professional course, so that no matter where in the world you are, you have your knowledge all in your head. You don't have to rely on someone else for anything else, like a CA or a doctor or a chef for that matter, because all the knowledge is within you. With tweaking your knowledge according to the country you're in or the place that you're in, you can work anywhere in the world. So that was something that was very important to my dad, which was something he said, which stuck with me. The second thing my parents really said, my dad really wanted, was me to get into an aligning field for him. So he tried to push that a lot, and he even enrolled me in a workshop in Singapore where I went for a week, and it was a design workshop, interior design workshop, and he said, you know what, just give it a shot. And he really tried convincing me that that was the right path, but it just wasn't my calling. And I said, no, it's not something I imagine myself doing, and it's not something that I really want to do with my life. And then my parents said, okay, if you are really, really serious about getting into baking, and you want to go down this field, we'll support you, but get some work experience as well, so you know what you're getting into. And also at that point, it was compulsory for CIA for you to have a 4-month work experience. So that kind of helped me, because I went and I worked in a kitchen. I understood how tiring it was for me and how challenging it was. And after that, I said, okay, no, this is still what I want to do. So my parents supported me, and there was no looking back. And even today, they're one of my biggest cheerleaders. So there's no going back on that.
Wow, that was quite a leap of faith for someone whose background is in the construction industry.
Yes.
So now, how many years? So let me educate our viewers on what your business is. So it's not Bake My Day anymore. Aanchal Sapra owns and runs a very successful business called Reve Patisserie. She has her own physical location in Kalinagar. You can go and check it out. They make the amazing stuff. In my house, that's all we have all the time. She has also started her own line of gelatos called Reveur Gelato, which is the only commercially available gelato in Pune, boxed. So you can get gelato at stores, but you won't get commercially available boxed gelatos. And I can say I'm a big fan, and I have to say I'm a big fan because what you see right here, this is what goes into the gelatos anyway. So how many years has it been since you started your entire journey from Bake My Day till to this day?
So it was from my second year of college. So 1, 2 plus another 3, 7 years, 7 or 8 years.
Any regrets?
No, everything has been a learning experience. All my failures, all the good reviews, all the bad reviews, health injuries, all has been a learning experience. I would not change a thing because I would not make me where I am today.
Agreed. Adversity is what makes us, right? But armed with the knowledge and experience that you have today, what advice would you go and give back to your younger self? Would you do things differently, or would you be like, no?
One thing I would definitely do differently is focus on my health. I always ignored that aspect, and that cost me a lot. It cost me a year of not having health by my side, and a year and a half, maybe even. And I would go back to myself and to any budding chef out there that take care of your health. This is a physically challenging industry, so keep that always in mind.
So I was putting this off for later, but let's get to the health aspect. So for those of you wondering why she keeps talking about her health, it's not that just because you come from a privileged background, you're not going to face adversity. And in fact, this adversity that you face with your own body is the worst kind of adversity. So Aanchal, can you just tell us and everyone else about what is it that you're talking about?
So while I was working for a bakery in New York City, I actually ended up with a slip disc, and a lot of it had to do with me not taking care of my health at that point and ignoring all the signs that kept coming in terms of back pain. And so one fine day when I was in my morning shift, I used to get to work at 5 a.m. I bent down to pick up a tissue paper from the floor, and I could not get up. I was stuck and I was in excruciating pain. There were two people who had to literally carry me to a spot and put me down in a chair, and I could not move. So I just stood frozen. And I was very, very fortunate that my parents were visiting me at that point, because otherwise everyone else in the city who I knew was already working. And in our industry, we have all the weird hours where you go into work at 5 a.m. or you end your shift at midnight. So it would have been very difficult for me to call a friend. But luckily my parents were there, and I called them, and since I couldn't move, my head chef said, should we call emergency medical services? And I said, yes, I can't move, I'm in excruciating pain. So we went to the hospital, of course, and it was quite an adventure. I never thought I would go in an ambulance in New York City to a hospital. And when I look back, my mom says, "You're crazy. What did you do?" And I said, "You know what? I gave you the experience of riding in an ambulance. You would have never had that." And she's like, "I was better off without it." But yeah, so we got to the hospital, and I'm allergic to painkillers, so I couldn't take ibuprofen, Combiflam, and because of the amount of pain I was in, there was no other option but to give me morphine. And once I was on morphine, I was absolutely high. I could see the room spinning, and I was shivering, and it was all kinds of things. And when we finally did an MRI, we found out that I have a slip disc in my lower back. And the only thing that I could have done is get physiotherapy, get help, and rest it out. It would take me a couple of months, is what the doctor said, and of course lose weight to take care of my back and reduce the pressure on my back. So I said, okay, I didn't know how to react at that point. I didn't understand the depth of the situation. But so I stayed on in New York for about 2 months, and I tried to get chiropractic therapy there. My mom was with me. My dad, of course, had to go back. But we tried everything in New York, but I couldn't be okay. I was still in a lot of pain, and because I'm allergic to painkillers, they had to put me on the highest kind of medication, which was oxycodone, which is highly addictive. So I started getting addicted to oxy, and that scared me that I can't live without a painkiller. I can't sleep without a painkiller. And that's when I knew. I said, Mom, I don't know what I need to do, but I need to go home and figure this out, because oxycodone is not the way out of this. And nothing I was doing there was helping me as much. And so I came back to India for a couple of months, and that's when I actually met your mom, Batul auntie, who changed my life. She is a yoga teacher, very, very, very renowned yoga teacher in Pune, and she didn't want to take me on at first because she did not want to take me privately, but she took me on, and I'm forever grateful to her for that. And I did a couple of months, 3-4 months of yoga with auntie. I lost a bunch of weight. My back became a lot stronger, and I went back to New York for my job that I still had there, because it was a workplace injury. So I went back and I was there for about 3 months, but it was October, November, December. So it was extremely cold in New York, and that added a lot to my pain. So I had to call it as it is, and I had to come back, understanding that I had to place my health on a priority over what I wanted to do in terms of work experience. So I came back, and after a couple of months, I of doing yoga with auntie, she finally said, "Okay, you know what? Go into the kitchen. You can work, but start with baby steps." And that's when I actually started with Reve patisserie, and I thought that it's going to be 3 months, 4 months max, and I am going to run away somewhere to do a job and get some more work experience. But life had different plans for me, and touch wood, thank you God, we excelled and the business grew, and that's when we decided to have a physical store, and the rest is history. Yes.
It would not do justice for me to talk right now. Anyway, but what I want to ask you is, and you did not mention this in what you've said, is that I'm sure there was more to the cause of the injury, right? Firstly, you were working for a very reputed cafe, bakery,
Yes.
patisserie in New York, right?
Yes.
And they made you do really rigorous physical activity, which I don't know how it works in the industry, but I don't think it's called for. But so, were you the only one who suffered an injury, or does this happen often?
It's a very, very common thing in our industries. That's why we have to make sure that our health is on point, because having a slip disc and being a chef kind of goes hand in hand, because it's such a physically challenging industry. You're going to be lifting 25 kg bags of sugar and 25 kg bags of flour. So it's something that is very common, but I did not have much knowledge about, because of which I didn't take care of my health. And I was working for a renowned bakery in New York, where they had a 3-story kitchen, and we were expected to go up and down with carrying heavy trays or a 25-pound bag of sugar. It was the normal thing. You would not hear somebody not doing it, but yeah, usually places have elevators. This one unfortunately didn't, and that's when I lifted that 50-pound, 25 kg bag of sugar, and I first felt my back actually say, okay, you know what, this is hurting. But me being me, I ignored it and went on with my day and worked. And I worked for weeks after that. And this carrying heavy things and running up and down just added to it. And when I tried to speak to someone at my original workplace, they just said, oh, you're probably not wearing the right footwear, or, it's just how it is. You have to deal with it. So I wasn't given even the right guidance at that point. But I switched jobs, and at the new workplace where things were much smoother, where we had lifts and people to help out when we were carrying heavier bags, that's where actually the repercussion happened, because I had been straining my back for so long already. And also being overweight at that point did not help. So definitely concentrate on health is something that I would always say.
That, of course. But to someone, did it come as a culture shock to you when you went there, and someone who has never had to do anything much in her life? No, but even in India, do you think that is different when it comes to Indian businesses or business abroad, that the lack of labor, how expensive labor is, that you were expected to carry something so heavy by yourself? Does it happen everywhere, or like how does it work?
In the US, it's very common because labor is extremely expensive. In India, and me being sensitive to this issue, I always make sure that there are 2 people to carry something heavy. But yeah, in countries abroad, it can be a little challenging to get that help, because anyway there are fewer people employed and the stress is a lot higher. So that can be an issue as well.
So what all does Rev serve?
We do cakes, cupcakes, brownies, anything dessert you can think of. And we also have customized cakes. So we do wedding cakes, we do theme cakes. That's kind of our specialty. And we're also known for our brownies. Our brownies, the egg brownies, are super, super gooey, because I love a gooey brownie. And besides that, we do pound cakes, we do cookies, we do dessert boxes. So there's a whole lot of everything dessert you can think of is what we serve. And we're actually planning to expand our little baby, and we're going to have our second store opening very soon in Koregaon Park, which will be a takeaway point for clients who just want to walk in, buy something and walk out.
So When you talk about Rev and Reveur, it's pretty obvious that you have a vision in your mind, right? So, where does this come from? Is there a certain vision that you want to implement that has come entirely by yourself, or is there somebody in the industry or in Pune or India, even in the world, that you look up to, or you take what you think is nice from here and from here? How does it work? Basically, how the process of, obviously, the business doing well tells you that what is working well or what is not working well, but sometimes you just have to persevere for a while before a product starts doing well, or you just need to
Absolutely.
push it enough. So what I'm trying to ask you is how does Anchal Sapra's mind works when it comes to the business?
I definitely look up to Chef Pooja Dhingra from Law 15. She's grown her business very, very, very strategically and smartly in Bombay, and she has multiple outlets. So that's definitely someone I look up to and kind of try and see, okay, how has she grown her business and opened up so many outlets. So in terms of someone I look up to, it's there. And in terms of my mind and how I work is, I'm always hungry to get my brand to known to more people and try and serve more people. And during COVID, we were one of the only places that was actually open, because I live right above my bakery. It's not the same kitchen, it's not the same floor, but it's very easy to access. And that's when, because we were only 9 months in with the physical store when COVID hit us, so we had to stop complete dine-in and we could not do anything. So when I started taking orders, at that point I had no staff, and I said, okay, let's see how it goes. But at that point we really blossomed because we managed to spread out to the city a lot, and I realized that I'm getting a lot of orders from even the Pimpri Chinchwad area or Bavdan, and I just wanted to try and see how we can reach different people. And that's where I decided post COVID, when things are better, that okay, I think it's time where we have one store that's pretty set. Let's try and explore, let's try and expand. Let's look up to a brand like Leo 15, let's look up to a brand like Theobroma that's managed to grow across cities, and try and see how we can take a leaf out of there and try and grow a little bit. And Reveur came along right during lockdown, which was absolutely amazing, because gelato and ice cream has been my dream. But we're trying to grow that baby as well, and get into more physical stores as much as possible.
So let's talk about Reveur a little bit. Personally, big fan of Reveur. Okay, so most people don't know the difference between ice cream and gelato, right? And there's a huge difference. There's a world of difference between the two. Also, you went to do a course especially to learn how to make gelato, right?
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So ice cream has been something that I absolutely love and to eat and make. But we did a very little bit of ice cream at the CIA, and I was always looking for an opportunity to learn more about this. So it so happened that I went for a trip with my friends to Bombay, and a friend of mine introduced me to this place that does gelato. And I was quite fascinated by it because I loved gelato as well, of course. And I love the concept of just doing a gelato store where people can walk in and out and just get yummy, delicious gelato. So I tried to find out where he has studied, and I found out that he'd gone to Carpigiani Gelato University in Bologna, Italy. And I started looking up the course, and that's when I decided, okay, this is something that I want to take a month out of my daily schedule to go and learn about. It's always very important to grow. So he said, why not do this? And when I came back from the course, I was all set to start gelato by the scoop. But I'm glad that it didn't work out, because I said, let me initially start with Reve patisserie and then we will add in the gelato aspect of things. But COVID hit, so it was good that we didn't start with by the scoop. And during lockdown, I actually met my business partner, and we decided to start on this gelato journey together. Yes.
So the gelato journey and the business partner became something else entirely.
Yes, for those who know me, my business partner for gelato is also my husband. Yes.
My bad. I actually introduced her wrong. I should have introduced her as Mrs. Aanchal Sapra Bhaktani, because that's who she is now. And you know who she got married to? She got married to someone who owns a dairy. Now, I don't know if this was a strategic acquisition.
It was definitely strategic. I mean, he was my butter supplier. That's how we met.
Okay, so where do we go from here? We have Reve Patisserie, we have Reveur, which is a box gelato, the only box gelato in Pune.
Yes.
Are there other box gelatos in the country or in Maharashtra?
Not as per gelato. There's a lot of sorbets that you get and a lot of ice creams, but not gelato as such.
Okay, so where do we go from here? Where do you see, let's say, Rev or Reveur or maybe even another brand 5 or 10 years down the line?
Well, my hope would be to get Reve Patisserie a couple of other stores across the city as takeaway points, like how you have a Theo Bromar or Bread Stories. That would be my vision for Reve Patisserie. And if I'm not daring to dream too big, maybe even to other cities. And but I would not want to do it on a franchisee model. I would want to do it self-owned, take care of the quality of things. That would be my vision for Reve Patisserie. In terms of Reveur, I would like to go not only buy box gelato, but I would also want to get into scooping. That is vision that I have for Reveur, that you're on a late night drive and you're craving some gelato and it's easily accessible to you by the scoop at any location you want. So that's kind of my vision for the two brands that we have going forward. For me personally, I haven't said this to many people, but I would love to actually write a cookbook and be a published author as well. So that's my vision in the near 5-6 years, I would say, for Reve Patisserie, Reveur, and for me.
So I love how you keep calling your businesses babies.
They are. You have to grow them and nurture them like you would with your children. How else are they going to actually expand and grow?
Right. No, I agree. TCF is my baby too. So what I wanted to ask is, we know your vision for 5 or 10 years down the line. So if I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly, I don't think you ever see yourself stop working, right? You're just...
I couldn't. I would never be able to sit idle. Reve Patisserie started because I could not sit idle. So when I was doing yoga and getting my back treatment, I was working out for 3 hours a day with auntie, of course. But apart from that, I was fried. I didn't know what to do with all the extra time I had on my hands.
Rather extra energy.
That too. So I started with Reve Patisserie, and I can't sit idle. In fact, I recently got married, like you said, so I took a little break from work for a month. And in between my wedding, so the 1 month flew by because I was wedding planning, so I was occupied. But I had 4 days in between when I got married and when I went for my honeymoon. And I literally went crazy because I hadn't started work at that point, because I said I'll start work when I come back from my honeymoon. And I went absolutely crazy. I could not sit at home doing nothing. And I was just like, I need to get back to work. I need to get back to work. So I flew back, and the next day I was at work, where it started full on.
So it's pretty evident, not only to me, to anybody who even talks to you for 5 minutes, that you're very passionate. And this is what has translated into the quality that you have maintained throughout the 7 years of Reve Patisserie and Reveur ice cream. But I'm sure there's a part of you that doesn't want to be too attached, especially emotionally, to a business, right? So do you think that it could maybe be a hindrance, like you mentioned, in expanding to other cities? Because there's one Aanchal Sapra.
Yes.
Unless we get more mini Sapras running around anytime soon, how are you gonna take care of everything and still lead a balanced life, and most importantly, like you keep mentioning, take care of your health?
It's very, very challenging. I think I'm still figuring that aspect out. But a lot of it also comes from hiring the right staff and getting the right help, and understanding that you need to let go of being in the kitchen constantly as well, which is what I am trying to do at the moment.
Would you call it micromanaging, or would you call it...
Yeah, it's difficult. It's very difficult to let go for me, especially in our industry, because you have to keep track of quality and things like that. But I think the key is in hiring the right staff and understanding where you can spend on skill and make people feel like they're part of a team and something bigger, rather than saying, you know what, you're replaceable. So I think if we try and get that kind of a culture going in the organization, is where we can see expansion coming in. Because you are only as much as what your team brings as well, which is something that I have learned over the last couple of years, that although I can do everything, I still need a team to help me reach there. And hiring the right people, getting the right kind of work done is what I hope to do to be able to expand.
So, apart from your health issues, what are some of the biggest obstacles or problems, or let's not even give them a negative connotation. What are some of the key learning points that, maybe because you studied in CIA, when you came back, you had a certain vision in your head, but maybe you introduced a new product that didn't do well in the Indian market. So, what would you say? How have you evolved throughout your journey? Like maybe this was Aanchal Sapra 7 years ago. This is how she would do things, but now how does she do things now after all the things that she's been through?
I was, when I came back from the CIA, I was very one-minded on, no, I'm not going to do eggless desserts. I'm only going to do egg-based things because that's where the taste is. And that was a big learning curve and challenge for me because a lot of people would call us, y'all don't do eggless? Okay, bye. And that's where I realized that I'm losing a lot of business. And so getting onto the eggless bandwagon took me a while, but I had to get onto that if I wanted to keep my business afloat. So that was one of the things that was definitely a learning curve for me. I would say the second was challenging was getting the same quality of ingredients. Initially, it was, now things are a lot more easily available, but at that point, it was a little challenging in terms of how you're going to source these ingredients. And then there was the learning curve with the market, because people still come to me and they're like, why are you charging 1,200 rupees for half a kg of cheesecake? And that's when you have to explain you're using Philadelphia cream cheese, which is expensive, and so you need to charge for that. So there is still a learning curve with the market. There's a part of society that doesn't want to spend as much because they can get it cheaper elsewhere. And educating the crowd on price points is also something that took a while for us to establish as a brand. We did a lot of free sampling because once you get the taste, you'll understand the difference. So that was something that also we had to do to be able to sustain and get our word out there. So yeah, those were a couple of learning curves and learning balls that came our way.
But I think what you mentioned is right, that once customers get a taste of what they're paying for, it makes a lot of difference. Not only that, I think not only just Pune, but Indians in general have started to evolve their palates a lot.
Absolutely.
They've become appreciative of quality ingredients, and they're open to trying a lot of different stuff. So I think you've been in the game long enough to be an established name, but at the same time, there's a lot of scope for growth and expansion.
Absolutely. In fact, what you said is absolutely right. We're evolving not only towards ingredients and understanding pricing, but also as a community when we are evolving to understand that being a chef is a respectful industry,
Right.
which wasn't so even 7 years ago. It was, oh, बावर्ची बनना है तुमको क्यों? That was literally the reaction that I got from a lot of people outside of my immediate family. And now people are beginning to actually respect the industry and understand the value of it, which is also a learning curve, I would say, when people look at me and say, oh, but you make things in the kitchen, really? Okay. So I would say we're evolving as people, which is great. As a culture, we're evolving.
Not only that, I think people fail to realize the amount of time, effort, resources, and know-how that have gone into establishing this entity, as I would say. Also because the barrier to entry to getting into something as simple as becoming a baker or in the kitchen is very low, right? The amount of home bakers that are now
Yes.
there, and they're just flooded on every possible promotion website or social media
Absolutely.
channel. It's incredible. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just that there are levels to this game, just like everything
Absolutely.
in life. See, the barrier to people don't realize that just because the barrier to entry to a certain field is low or non-existent, that doesn't make the good things less good.
Absolutely.
You can go and buy a cake for 300 rupees, but it's not going to be the same at all, because you're not just paying for the cake, you're paying for the expertise and the amount of time that person has put to get to the point where they can give you that taste and quality.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But let's not talk about what has gone wrong. Let's talk about what you like, about the Indian market, because I think there's no better place than Pune or India in general to do
Absolutely.
business in. So what is it that you like? This is a two-part question. That what do you like? Firstly, what is the best thing that you like about the Indian audience? And secondly, what is the one thing or a few things that you would like to change or educate the consumers about? For example, for me personally, because I know now the difference between ice cream and gelato, I'd be like, it's okay, I'd rather pay that extra 25-50% because they are definitely not that same. I don't think I've had ice cream since I've had gelato.
Well, you're absolutely right. So there's two things in terms of what I love about the industries. We love to hop on every new trend, whether it be piñata cakes, pull me up cakes, now the bomb cake. So I think that's really interesting. It challenges you in terms of understanding what you can do new and bring new to the table. So that's very nice to get on to the ever evolving industry and being a part of it. As far as what the difference between gelato and ice cream, you said, I skipped your question earlier. So the difference between gelato and ice cream, firstly, gelato has only 20 to 30% air as compared to ice cream, which is 80 to 90% air. So what happens is the more air you have, the less flavor you have. So if you taste a mango ice cream versus a mango gelato, you will taste a whole lot of difference because of the amount of air. The more the air, the less the flavor. So in terms of strongness of flavor, then there, of course, there's the technical aspects in which you serve gelato at a lower temperature than ice cream, and of course there is the fat content and all of that. But instead of getting into that, I would rather say it's more the flavor profile and the taste. It's all about how much air you put in, and gelato has no preservatives. So it lasts you only 2 to 3 months when it's sealed in a box. If you're doing it by the scoop, it lasts you 3 days. Versus ice cream, which will last you a year, 6 months to a year. So you can understand how much has gone into that preparation of ice cream to make it last that long. So major differences between the two.
So how does your day go about? And generally, not only just your day, but your work life in general. Like, what does your average day, week or month in the life of Aanchal Sapra in terms to the amount of work that goes into Reve, patisserie and Reveur? Like, how does it look like? Let's say, do you spend a certain amount of time per week working with your marketing department? Okay, these are the creatives that we're going to get out. Like, this is how much we need to spend on promotions. We're going to do flyers. We're going to do Instagram ads. We're going to do Facebook ads. So just walk me through, give me a brief outlay on how that works.
So the first half of my day usually goes in planning production, because that's the main thing in getting product out, getting orders completed, getting the case done, working with the team to make sure the quality and the standard is absolutely maintained. So the first half of my day is usually always production related. Then we get into more of where we do marketing, and we have a weekly call or once in 2 weeks a call with depending on the season time and non-season time, with the marketing team that runs Instagram for us, where we say, okay, you know what, this is our creatives that we're going to have for the week. This is what we want to promote this month. This is if we're doing menu specials. So we do weekend specials, or we run specials during Ganpati, Diwali. All of that needs to be focused on, and content needs to be created for that. So months before that, we'll work on shoots where all of that is professionally shot, where we can take care of the imagery, and so the marketing team has enough content for it. So we get into that aspect. Then then there's a part of my day that goes into recipe trials and new developments. So I try and work on a new recipe every 2 weeks or every week if I have the time, even, where we can expand our menu and get in new things as well. And then there's the once a month where we sit with the finance team, and we try and sort out the accounts and figure out what is done, what is not done, where our targets are met, whether we're running lower than what we need. So if we're running lower, okay, why did we do less this month? How can we improve our sales? And how can we market ourselves better in order to get our sales higher? What did we do last month that our sales were higher? So it's sitting with all of the teams that kind of helps with it.
So what do you do in your free time?
My free time, I love to Netflix. I binge watch series, or I love going out for lunch or dinner with my family and friends.
What are you watching on Netflix right now?
I just started The Good Doctor.
Thank God you didn't say Money Heist. I'm
No.
so tired. Okay.
No.
So personally, I have tried both Reve and Reveur, right? So I know what it is that makes your product special and different, and the quality and the love and the attention to detail that goes into it. But if you had to send a message to the people watching, what is it that makes, or what is it that you're trying, how is Reve different from all the other bakeries or patisseries out there? Like what in a to summarize it, what could be your USP?
So I think one of the major key ingredients that key things that we focus on is quality. I would not send out anything that is not up to the mark. I rather throw it away and redo it rather
This
than
reminds me, sorry to interrupt, something that's written in your kitchen.
yes.
Do it right or do it
Do it
twice.
twice. That's
Yes.
on the walls in our kitchen because we live by it. Do it right or do it twice. That's definitely something that I believe in. That you need to maintain that quality and that standard. And the other thing that I like to do is customize according to my client's budget, especially when we do corporate orders and we do hampers and we do Diwali. I don't say, okay, I have a set hamper, this is 500, you want it, take it or leave it. What we try and do is, okay, you have a budget of 700 rupees, let's see what I can give you max in 700. So our customization is also something that we really really work towards, which not a lot of people do right now.
If I wanted to start from scratch in the kitchen, or let's say if I wanted to do exactly what you're doing but with a twist of my own, what advice would you give to me or all those other budding bakers out there? Like, where do you start? People who have absolutely no idea how to get started and to get to the point where you are. How do they go about it?
I think the key thing would be never stop learning. Pick up a book, pick up a class, do a course online. There's so many of them available right now. Educate yourself and keep learning. Never stop learning, because you might think you know it all and that's going to be the end of your business even before you start. So educate yourself, because only once you know things is when you can make them well enough, and that's when you can start selling them. Be sure of owning your product and knowing exactly what it should look like and what it should taste like before you try and sell it to somebody else. So I think that would be the key aspect on educating yourself.
I think you're giving yourself very less credit. Might I add that you are a very good salesperson. Not only that, you have utilized all your network, all your connections very well. And some people have a lot of connections, but they don't utilize it, or they overutilize it, and all they can talk about is business. But I think you've really maintained a good balance, also providing value. And your attention to detail, not just when it comes to the products, but also to, let's say, the paper that is being used, or the cardboard that is being used. Like, everything is just
It's all about जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. So you need to not only make
but
sure
जो अंदर
product
भी
is
है वो
good.
भी अच्छा है.
Yes, you need to make sure product is good, but you need to make sure it's packaged well. It's presented well enough, and once you can handle that aspect of it as well, where packaging is taken care of and it looks pretty as much as tying a beautiful ribbon on top of your box to that detail. I think there's a lot that you can get because of that as well. Like, I know during lockdown people have just seen my cake box, and because they like the cake box they've ordered cakes from me. So there's definitely an entire aspect of packaging that I would say you need to focus on, but the most important is your product.
So I give you a hypothetical situation. Let's say if you decided or did not have the opportunity to become a baker, or not even get into marketing and finance. Okay, I've made it very difficult for you. What would Aanchal Sapra be doing right now? Would she be in the construction industry with her dad, or...
That's very challenging. You've taken away all the things that I like.
There's just two things that you had to decide between, and one that your father does.
I think if I wasn't a chef, if I wasn't in finance, if I wasn't in marketing, I would probably find my way into something artsy where I can express myself. So I express myself through my work, through my cakes here. And I think maybe I would have got into interior design then, followed my dad's footstep, but not in the design aspect of spaces then, but some creative field for sure.
I'm still trying to understand what your motivation is. Because like I mentioned in the beginning, very rarely do people who are blessed and fortunate with so much end up working so hard. Personally, a lot of us sitting right here are quite fortunate, touch wood, but I don't work half as hard as you do. So I'm just trying to get the motivation, because we know money's not the goal. And
for me, it's just what I'm doing with my time needs to make me happy. And if that's not what is happening...
What is your definition of happiness, Aanchal?
It gives me a lot of happiness to see a cake done right. Like, if I do an experiment with something, like today we were experimenting with cheese straws in the kitchen, and if they turned out right, it just made my day. I was like, oh wow, I made something that was actually, I made it for the first time and it turned out nice. It gave me happiness. That's all that I usually care about. That if I make something and it turns out good, I am happy. I can sleep peacefully at night.
I'm pretty sure you would have been able to get into any other field if this is your criteria for I just want to be happy and go to bed.
Yeah, it's true though. I love doing what I do.